If you want to pump your body and expand your mind, there's only one place to go. Mind Pump. Mind Pump with your hosts, Sal DiStefano, Adam Schaefer, and Justin Andrews.
Always an adventure with Joe De Sena.
I love Joe.
Oh, yeah.
Every single
Never
time.
disappoints.
You don't know what to expect with the guy.
You know, people ask all the time what our, and I think we rep Paul Check a lot, this and that, but if I had to say, and I'm reminded of that after having another conversation with him, I connect the most with Joe out of all the guests that we have, and I like him more than any guest that we have. He's just
so
100% my people, for sure.
He's super authentic. He's very, very real.
Yep.
And he is who he is. That's the impression you get when you meet with the guy.
And I like his friends, which we got introduced to a few of those on this podcast.
This episode was just a fun conversation. We talked about everything, and then halfway through because this guy, what he does, he comes in, he's got food with him. He's like, I'm just going to start eating while we record. And we're like, I don't know if that's a good idea. We have to set up the mic so that he can stand because he won't sit down. He doesn't want to sit down when he's recording, so he's standing.
No, he's like antsy the whole time.
Yeah, and then he's like, "Oh, we should call my friend real quick. Hey, Doug, connect this to you." So we have to pause and start the podcast because he wants to call his friend to tell a story. So we end up calling two of his friends who are mentors to him, who are hilarious.
Yeah. I also think it's important if you've never heard Joe on our show or you don't know who Joe is, I would recommend listening to his first episode.
Yes, good call.
Because we kind of glazed over his story because we know him so well, and we're assuming that a majority of our audience knows who he is, and I think it's important to hear his upbringing, and he talked a little bit about his pool business as a kid and working for a lot of the guys from the movie Godfather. Those were all based off of real characters. Joe was the pool boy for many of those characters. He shares that in the first show that we did with him, and then from there, the money that he made from there, he pivoted into. Well, he went to Cornell and he finished his degree. Then he pivoted over into the stock market and was working on Wall Street. And then from there, he invested a lot of his money. Oh, I forgot this construction company that he also ran for a long time, was very successful. And then he also took all the money that he had made and invested it in the Spartan. And Spartan was, for 15 years, losing money before it got out of that. So he's got a great story that leads up to Spartan. We kind of pick up from there and just kind of catch up with him. So if you've never heard Joe talk, I think the first interview we did with him was phenomenal also. So if you want more of this guy, or you haven't heard and you're starting to listen to this, go back, listen to that one, then listen to this. You for sure will enjoy.
He's also a good storyteller. A lot of times, sometimes when we have a guest and I'm enthralled by them, where I almost forget that I'm interviewing them, I'm just listening to them talk. Later on, I try to pick up on what made them so enthralling because I'm trying to improve my skills as a podcaster. Joe is one of the best storytellers I've ever talked to. I mean, he tells stories so well, and you get so involved, and they're so funny and great, and it's a great skill. I told him that when he interviewed me up in Spartan on his YouTube channel. I told him that. He goes, I bet you tell everybody that. I said, no, I said, you seriously have the best storytelling skills.
That's a really good interview also. So maybe Jackie can link the Spartan YouTube video that he did with you, where the two of you were talking when we were just up there last. So link that in the show notes, Jackie.
It's a good time. Also, if you are interested in any of our fitness programs, we've designed a lot of fitness programs for different goals. We have people... We design some programs for people who want to look like bodybuilders, or who want to sculpt their body like a bodybuilder, or a physique competitor, or a bikini competitor, or a figure competitor. We have programs for people who like functional athletic performance. We have programs for people who just want to build strength, or for people who want to train in unconventional ways like strongmen. We have correctional exercise programs. We have a ton of programs that we've designed ourselves, and some of them in collaboration with other experts in the field. And that's what we provide. That's the type of product that we provide. So if you have any questions, or you want to kind of look into any of them, just go to mapsfitnessproducts.com, and we have information on each of those programs. Also, this month, all month long, enroll in any MAPS program, and you're going to get something for free. You guys want to guess?
Get out of it. What is it?
It's not a sticker. They don't get a free sticker.
Okay. Is Scratch and Sniff?
It's not that.
A hug?
No, they get 1 year of access to our forum for free.
You're out of your fucking mind.
That's better than a temporary tattoo.
Yeah, free access to our forum. It's a $97 value. Just enroll in any of our MAPS programs, any of them. So MAPS Anabolic, MAPS Performance, MAPS Aesthetic, MAPS Split, MAPS Strong, MAPS Hit, MAPS Prime Pro. Did I name them all?
Yeah, but pretty much.
Okay, so any program,
Yeah.
get 1 year free access to our forum all month long. Phenomenal promotion. If you want to find out which MAPS program is best for you, just go to mapsfitnessproducts.com. And that's it. So I think there's not much else to say. You got to listen to this episode. Joe always brings it. So here we are talking to Joe De Sena. So have you always been a maniac, or is this something that happened later on?
Always been a maniac. And I think about that a lot because, and I'm sorry I'm eating, but and part of the reason I'm having a stomach issue too is I'm eating these bars and bars.
He's got stomach issues. He's eating a fucking processed food bar.
You started with the whole food, so that's not bad.
Yeah.
Well, what happened was I woke up I got in late last night. Then I'll answer the question about the maniac.
Yeah.
I got in. I got to bed at like 2. I was like, I got to see these guys at 9:30. They're telling me it's an hour and a half away. I got to hit Whole Foods, so I got to wake up at like 6 and bang out burpees because I got to get my workout in. So I did 300 burpees, and then I was in the car the whole time, and I was starving. Right? So now what happens when you get to Whole Foods, I'm looking at a giant plant-based bucket of cucumbers and quinoa and stuff, and then these cool-looking bars. You're starving. You're ravenous, right? I want to eat the wrapper, everything.
And you got 3 drinks right there. I don't even know. What are those drinks there?
Yeah.
Juice?
Kombucha.
Just a bunch of kombucha?
Yeah.
Yeah, so tell me about this whole maniac thing. I feel like, are you just always crazy? Hey, it's funny. When I meet people who know you, they say the same 2 things every time. When I meet someone like, oh, you know Joe? Yeah, I know Joe. They'll say same 2 things. Fucking great guy, love that guy.
He's a madman.
And he's crazy.
Yeah,
he's a maniac. Everybody says the same thing.
Yeah.
And I don't even say this in a funny way. I don't think I'm crazy.
That's what crazy people would say, though.
No,
true.
No, but I think the rest of the world is crazy.
Oh, okay.
Right? Like not necessarily third world countries, but like in the first world. Look, you can imagine Spartans become a big business.
Yeah.
There's lots of people that come out of the woodwork that want to buy the company, right? And I say to myself, yeah, it would be an unbelievable number. It would change my life financially. It would change my kids' life, legacy, the whole thing. And I look around and people are like on computers and eating crappy food and not active. And so like, am I crazy or are they crazy? Like,
yeah, that's a good
right?
point.
Like,
that's a good point.
So like, heart surgery is pretty extreme, right? Like doing 300 burpees in the morning doesn't sound too extreme to me. So I don't know. I don't think I'm the crazy one.
I guess you're right.
It's because we've celebrated technology for so long, and we talk about all the positive things it's done for our life, how convenient. Probably what you probably took an Uber over here. Like,
Nobody's asking the unintended consequences.
Yeah, nobody talks about, well, now that you don't have to get out of your house, walk to your car anymore. Now that you no longer you got DoorDash serving your food right to your ass. Like now that we can be on a computer and pretty much purchase, surf, get answers to anything. I mean, nobody talk. Those are all awesome
Climate
things.
control. Everything's
these are all
handled,
awesome things, but nobody really talks about, well, what's
the unintended consequences. This
Right.
reminds me, and you're old enough to know this, Joe. You're a little older than I am. Do you remember when processed foods really started gaining traction and started becoming a thing, right? And when I was a kid, and I'm sure for you as well, nobody really asked, wait a minute, should we not be eating all this processed food all the time? It was a new thing. It became popular.
My mother did.
Your mother did. Well,
She was an outlier.
yeah, exactly. But nobody else was asking those questions. So when I was a kid, it was totally normal. For breakfast, you'd have something that you warmed up in the microwave, and then lunch was some fruit roll-up shit, and then dinner was...
My mother wouldn't take a microwave, the TV dinners, the whole thing. She wouldn't do it.
Yeah,
but she was considered crazy. Not only by the neighborhood, not only by my dad, but even by me, because it wasn't normal.
Because your friends were doing all the other shit.
Yeah, and so when you say, Joe, you're a maniac, like, I keep thinking about, like, I'm not really a maniac. My mother wasn't a maniac. It took me 30 years to figure out my mother wasn't a maniac.
Right, yeah.
Right, but everybody would have referred, if my mother was still alive, and the same way you talk to friends and say, oh, I'm going to see Joe De Sena, she's nuts. They would have said about my mother, but she wasn't.
Yeah. No, that makes, because it reminded me a lot of that, because now people are starting to look at the unintended consequences of this processed food revolution, which, to be quite honest, there were some positives. You had long shelf lives, and people were able to get calorically dense food for much cheaper, which for most of human history, that was a problem, right? People just didn't have enough calories. That was a real issue. So nobody was asking those questions. Later on, after we had a couple generations, we're like, hold on a second, you got kids getting diabetes now. Let's take a look at the unintended consequences. I feel like it's like that today with technology. With technology, nobody's asking those questions yet.
So let's go back. I'm going to screw up the facts on this story, but it's like France, 1600s. and the new technology is a sewer system. And they installed the sewer system, and it's awesome because people can go to the bathroom, runs right out of the house, down the hill, right through the pipes. Problem is the rats come in through the pipes, right? Unintended consequences.
Oh yeah.
So now what do? New technology here, or
They
new
get the
plan.
plague.
Well, no. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna pay people to kill rats. They bring us the tails. We pay a penny to the government, right? We're gonna solve the problem. But what people did was they outsmarted that, and they started rat farms. And they're just snipping.
wow.
So
They're just
now there's
snipping
more rats than there were without tails running around, right? So like
I did not know that.
unintended consequences.
Yeah. People need to ask those questions, I think.
Yep.
And how's your company growing right now? Last time we talked to you, it was blown up. Is it still on that upward trajectory?
Wait,
International juggernaut.
Let's actually, for some, I know most listeners probably know who you are, but for those that don't, I would like to talk a little bit about the financials with you. I asked you before we got on air if you would be open and would share some things, and mainly I want to talk about what you've shared with me before, which is how hard it was to start Spartan financially, how long it took to get out of the red, and where it's at today. Can you kind of tell us that?
Well, we've made so much money in the last year. We're going to actually buy Amazon.
Whoa! Yes.
It's no longer. People don't know, but I'm the wealthiest guy in the world. Right yeah, I might even throw an apple just for dessert.
Did you see the article on Amazon that just came out about they 50%?
They're projecting to do 50% of all e-commerce on nationally, all of it, half of it.
Yeah, I wish I could say I had the foresight to see it when Amazon first came out. I was on a trading desk, and the stock was, God, it was single digits.
Shit.
Before, I can't even tell you. Yeah. And there was no way they were going to make it work. But Jeff Bezos did come from the smartest hedge fund on the planet, D.E. Shaw. So he was a smart guy, and he was around smart people. And but who would have guessed that, right? Like, he just kept grabbing market share and closing stores, and right? And clearly those people that were investing with him saw the future, which was this guy's going to own commerce. Forget about e-commerce, commerce.
Period.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, they're one of the most disrupting companies in terms of market disruption ever.
Yeah.
Absolutely, completely
You're just
changed.
willing to take a hit.
They
on
actually
so many
took
levels.
one thing that blew me away is they took the way people search for products online was Google, and they flipped it. Now, when people search for a product, they'll go Amazon first.
Oh, that's awesome.
And look up
Awesome
the reviews.
for him.
Yeah.
It's going to be awesome for us. I mean, once we close the acquisition.
So tell us about Spartan.
You're gonna have so many people believing that.
Yeah.
Investing in Spartan.
We
like
can't wait to change the name from Amazon to Spartan. Right?
Yeah, Spartan products.
Spartan products.
So when you, how long did it take you to profit with Spartan when you started it in moving along? How long did it take you before you started?
And how much did you invest in it along the way? I want to hear this.
So it's pretty much been an overnight success, like you guys, where it was 18 years, 15 of which we lost money.
God, 15 years of losing?
Yeah.
Wow.
You know, my advisors within the company, the woman, our CMO, and our head of PR would say, "Hey, Joe, this isn't a smart thing to say. People don't really feel sorry for you." But the reality is, I've still never taken money out of the company. So
wait a minute, you don't pay yourself?
Now I get a salary.
Okay.
But as far as like a distribution, it's always just been put it in, and because I'm a believer in this thing, and I was taught at a young age, take care of a company, and then it takes care of you. So 18 years is probably a little extreme, but thank God I made some money in finance to fund this thing. You know, it's been so the dollars. How many dollars did we
tell me. I want to know how much you had to make in order to do something like that, because obviously if you weren't bankrolled, you probably couldn't afford 15 years of losing. I know that we were blessed because all of us had other careers, other businesses that were successful, so we were able to.
And your trust funds. I mean, you guys have that trust.
Adam's Snapchat sex
Ivy
work.
League
That was making
all
money.
over this.
I mean, when I come in, just because this is the second time I've been here, when I see the 4 or 5 Teslas parked out front, it is. I don't know if it's a good look for you guys.
We don't try and hide it though. You know,
That's some of the people working out next door across. You know that, right? Yeah.
But I started in Queens. I started in Howard Beach, and my dad was actually wealthy when I was growing up. The first 7-8 years of my life, and then times turned on him. He was over-levered. He was a super smart guy, super industrious, hardworking, and he just got over-levered in the real estate boom, not unlike what we saw recently and probably seeing again right now. It was the 80s. It was the first time real estate was really exploding, and he just had a knack for it. He was building stuff. He was buying stuff, turning apartment buildings into condos. And it was all financed by a business he had at Kennedy Airport, which was a trucking company. But it became a big trucking company. He basically had the contract for IBM. All the IBM freight that came into New York's airport, into JFK, he had control of, which meant pick it up at the airport, bring it to a warehouse, consolidate it, break it down, ship it back out into different parts of the world or New York City. And that was funding all this real estate excitement he had. Well, he lost the account. The guy that was running the account at IBM met a Japanese girl and moved the whole operation to Japan. Whether it was smart or not, or related to the relationship, who knows? But then the faucet was shut, and he couldn't fund. And then the stock market crash hit. So anyway, he starts to go bust, and it's when you go bust, in many cases, it's not like overnight. It's a slow, drawn-out process,
slow bleeding
right?
process.
Yeah, like the banks have to come and take your stuff, and the phone's ringing nonstop, and the debt collectors, and don't forget, in the neighborhood we were in, you had to have the right partners to do that kind of business at Kennedy Airport at that time, and those people, the mentality is "fuck you, pay me." Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what's going on in the environment. It's not like, oh, tough times. No. We were making money together when times are good. We never stop making money. That's your problem. And so that was an interesting component to what was going on in my childhood. But anyway, that was the spark for me to say, I'm going to go make money on my own. Thank God, because the other alternative is to throw up your arms, right? You got a rich dad, and you don't really, I didn't have that work ethic yet.
How old are you here?
Pre-10.
Was this
somewhere between 7 and 10?
Is this the transition where you get into doing the pool service?
Yeah. So my parents get divorced because my mom's into yoga, meditation, health food. My father's losing everything, so they split up. And my mom goes to buy a Chevy. She's getting a new car. She got a little settlement from my dad. She just sold the house, and she's going to get a Chevy, which was a downgrade. Right? We had Cadillacs. My father was doing well, and next door to the Chevrolet dealership is a BMW dealership. And I'm with her, and I see the BMW, and I'm savvy enough to know at that age that that's a nicer car. And she's like, you could have anything you want, you just got to work for it. And that sentence, you never know what a kid is going to absorb, but that sentence really grabbed me, and I said, yeah, I got to work. I got to work for it. Next time I was with my dad, my neighbor was out. My neighbor was the head of Banana Organized Crime Family. Wasn't really, I didn't understand that as a kid. I just knew that everybody respected him and deferred to him, and there were lots of nice cars that showed up all day long with pizza boxes and cannolis and stuff, which probably had gold bars in them. We'll get into that story on the gold bars. But so anyway, he says, hey, why don't you? He knows we're struggling, and he says, why don't you clean my swimming pool? I'll pay you $35 a week. And he teaches me some great lessons in those first few months with him. He's like, look, if you say you're coming at 8 a.m. on Saturday, you better be in at 7:45. If you say you're going to clean the pool, you better straighten up the lawn furniture. You better clean the shed, go above and beyond, clean the tile around the pool, make it so that you're indispensable. And he was teaching me, one, for himself, because he wanted his backyard taken care of, right? 2, probably a little bit to take care of me. 3, who knows where I'd be at 18 years old, right? He'd have his claws into me. I would become an earner. That was a term used for guys that earned money that you'd have to then be partners with somebody. And the other thing is, he had every boss, everybody in that lifestyle, he was going to then recommend me to. So he wanted to make sure I didn't make him look bad. So anyway, fast forward, I build that business, and I'm in college, and I've got 700 customers, most of which were those kinds of guys. And when I think about why I ended up here at Spartan, or why I do the things I do, or why you call me a maniac, it's really that journey. I had 700 customers that I could walk into their house at any point in time, open their fridge just walk in the house, open the fridge, sit on the couch, like that's the kind of relationship I have with all my customers. And he taught me that. And the neighborhood taught me that. But I got a bird's eye view as a single, young, hardworking kid on kind of like what Bruce Lee said, right? Take the good, discard the bad. I saw these families operate, including my own. My father, my parents got divorced, my father losing the money. And I guess I took all these nuggets unbeknownst to me. I'm like, oh, I'm going to do this when I have a family. I'm not going to do that. Mm-hmm. How many guys would send me to go clean a pool or straighten up some brickwork or something to their girlfriend's house while I'm there with their wife? I mean, it was just craziness. And so I just built an operating manual for how I was going to do my life. The challenge is with my life now with 4 children is they'll never have those experiences, right? They'll never have a guy that owed them $60,000 where like they just don't. I don't know how to recreate that.
I feel like you're a smart enough guy because you went through it that you also wouldn't allow yourself to spoil the shit out of your kids and allow that to happen either. So are there things, we talk about this on the show actually a lot. I love when Justin and Sal share this with us is little things that they do to teach them the value of $1 and these lessons without also being a dick and being like, sorry kids, we have no money when they know you fucking do. What do you do? How do you do that?
So the challenge is, and I'm learning because I'm a new dad. I've got a 13, 11, 9, and 6, right? So I've never done this before. And I think about this a lot. And so some examples I'll come up with here you're going to love. But the challenge is, and I think anybody married here and anybody listening that's married, your wife and you have to be on the exact same page. And that's impossible. It's just not possible because she has a completely different set of glasses she sees the world through than you. It doesn't make it right or wrong.
Just different.
We're just different. Mm-hmm. I had a different set of experiences than she had. And so I naturally, because of what we're talking about here, want to be harder and harder and not to be a jerk, but to try to like manufacture adversity and get as close as I can to some of those experiences I had, the ones that I think helped. Mm-hmm. Right. And plus, not only mine, but even from the stories I've heard of other successful people, and you guys have heard. And so one great thing I did with the boys one day. I have 2 boys, 2 girls. The boys are older, and I'm chopping wood. And this was probably 4 or 5 years ago. I'm chopping wood in Vermont before I moved overseas. And I said, all right, boys, you're stacking wood. And I purposely made the pile they had to stack, 100 yards away. Right. So they're picking up the piece. I'm splitting. And you get a penny a piece, right? Penny every piece you stack, you get a penny. So we're about 120 pieces in, and Charlie, the younger brother, says, Dad, I'm really thirsty. I said, no problem, 20 cents for water. And but it was straight face, and forget it, I'm not thirsty. So we get to whatever, a couple of bucks they've got each, right? They've stacked a couple of 100 pieces of wood. I bring them to the general store, which we own in Vermont. And I call in advance where they don't hear me, and I said, look, we're going to be coming in. They're going to dump a bunch of pennies on the counter. I want you to tell them the only thing they could afford with the amount of money they have is green juice, right? so we get there, they pockets, they dump their pennies, their nickels, and she's like, the woman behind the counter is like, listen, great job, guys, whatever. I understand you're working for your money for the first time, but all you could afford is green juice. And my older son, the smart bastard, he looks at her, and it takes him like 10 seconds. He's like, no problem. We'll go across the street to the other store.
Yeah.
Problem
he's
solving.
A smart bastard.
Yeah.
That's great.
But that would be considered a little extreme. I've got obviously much more extreme examples, but even with me doing those things, they have it too easy.
Well, yeah. Justin, you got to share what you do. Justin's way that
he beats his kids randomly.
I do. Yeah.
No. Share with Joe. I think Joe will appreciate what you're doing, and I think so will the listeners that have never heard the show or us talk.
Well, I just display it so it's like visible, so they see the money and I put it on clips, and so I write out like basically what everything's worth. And so they can see it, and then they have a goal, and they have a specific goal, and like, I want, this specific toy. And so then they see like, okay, it's this many dollars or it's this many cents that I have to acquire. And so then I have allotted chores that are worth value. And so it's just basically like creating the economy of it and showing them like, okay, if I do this, it translates to this. And then, if they complain about it, I just go back and refer to, well, you didn't put the work in, therefore, you didn't earn it yet. So.
You also set it up. I love what he does with because one of the things that we have to combat right now, which I'm sure you have to deal with, is this, in front of our phones and our computers. So he also does it with, this is the part that I wanted you to talk about. Okay. I think it's brilliant, is the amount of time, like, okay, if you want an hour of TV time or iPad time, that's valued at $1.75 or whatever.
So you earn, the entertainment that you can experience like on like playing video games or watching TV that way.
I like that a lot. I think if my dad didn't go bust and I didn't have that moment with my mom and see the differential between the Chevy and the BMW and like make that connection, I wouldn't have gotten it. Somebody had me recently on a podcast or an interview or something, and we were talking about this exact thing. And you guys will appreciate this now, but I don't know how you teach this to a kid. Here's a silly example. I would come in with the pool truck, and then we'll go back to your kids. I would come in with the pool truck, let's say 11 o'clock at night. I started at 5 in the morning, right? Long day, 7 days a week, never a day off in 10 years. Sounds like the grandfather that walked both ways uphill, but I'm telling you, that's what it was. And by the way, I didn't want a day. Never even occurred to me to take a day off.
Right.
I just want to make money. And I'm in the truck. It's 11 o'clock at night. You're exhausted. You want to go right to bed. But I quickly learned that if I didn't unload the truck, clean it out, restock every shelf, I was going to be fucked the next day. What did that mean? If I drove an hour and a half to go do some guy's job that was like a $600 job and I didn't have the parts in the truck, I blew my whole day.
Right.
I blew $1,000. But if I didn't have that connection, which is what you're talking, like, then I wouldn't stay up past 11 o'clock at night. But until I felt that pain a few times, my whole life changed because last night when I got in at 1:30 in the morning and I knew I had to drive an hour to come see you guys, right? Who would want to wake up early in the morning and do 300 burpees before coming here unless you felt the pain of not working out?
That's right.
Right?
You got to have that contrast too, because I don't think a lot of people realize that they're in pain because this is just how they always are. Right. You know what I mean? They just always feel shitty. And so I like it when I would start training clients and they start to improve their fitness and start eating right, and then they'd fall off a little bit, and then they'd come back and they'd be like, man, I feel terrible when I eat bad. I feel like I used to be able to eat that way. And I say, well, no. I think you just don't realize how bad you felt. You got used to it, but now you have the contrast. It's with kids, it's funny because you had to learn the lesson of how to earn your money. I think your kids are probably going to have to learn the lessons of how to keep it and invest it. Might be a little bit different, right?
Well, I mean, I've got to make them feel that pain. Right? I didn't feel the pain until my dad lost all his money. And so how do I recreate? And the thought has crossed my mind. Again, you're going to reference me as a crazy person, but at some point in the future, in the next 3-4 years, we should probably, if I can get my wife to buy into it, we should probably move to like Kazakhstan or
have them
Delhi.
live somewhere. Yeah, that's a great idea.
It sounds, you're laughing, right? And it sounds ridiculous, but actually I owe that to them. I should force myself to live in a really shitty situation for a year and just say, hey, kids, sorry, it just didn't work out.
Now, the irony in that is what probably drove you as a kid was to make sure that you didn't have to do that, though. So think about that for a minute.
But why? Companies don't last very long. There's very few companies you can count that have been around 100 years. No. Families don't last in succession very long. And so that, I think the exact thing we're talking about is the reason they don't last. We start to rest on laurels. We start to have expectations. We suffocate ourselves as companies. But you go, like Batman Begins, Christian Bale, right? He goes and lives in a Chinese prison. It's a great story. But like, I think the kids need to be in.
What's the thing, Sal? You say the strong man.
Oh yeah, what is it? Good times. Bad times breed strong men. Strong man create good times. Good times create weak men. Weak men create bad times.
There
It's
you
that
go.
whole cycle.
That's the cycle.
Yeah, one thing that I started going to this church on and off, and one of the last times I went, they were talking about these missions that they send kids on, and I thought, wow, that's brilliant. What a brilliant way to teach your kid, especially if they're in a well-to-do situation. They don't have lots of challenges, right? Their dad, their mom and dad or whatever make good money. They have everything they need. What a great way for them to learn, number one, how privileged they are. Number two, how hard it can be to live and also just that's a difficult time to go on a mission and have to go help other people for like a year. Yeah. I feel like there's so many lessons in that, and I thought that might be a good strategy.
I love that. I think you even have to go a little further than that, right? I think because if you're on a mission, right, and you're from a wealthy family and the kid's going and it's like, I'm covered, they got my bills, I'm just going to help some people that are a little desperate. Somehow we have to create that, in my opinion.
You want them to feel the same way.
They got to feel that pain. Mm-hmm. We got to be selling carpets on a busy street and like we're not eating today if we don't sell a carpet. Sorry, it sounds crazy, but I don't think I'm crazy on this.
Yeah. Now, are you seeing things, because you have a 13-year-old's the oldest, you said, right? Now, are you seeing things in his behavior? Your boy is the 13-year-old? Are you seeing things in his behavior that concern you that you need to do that? Are there certain things that you've seen?
Yeah.
Give me an example.
So I when we were in Singapore 2 years ago, I said, guys, you got to start businesses. So the four of them, I sat them down, and it's not what I'm going to describe right now is not effective because I'm the one pushing it on them.
Yeah,
right?
That's true.
They're not pulling it from me. All right, what are you going to call your business? Guys, what do you think about this? Again, they weren't populating a yellow pad full of ideas. I'm putting it on them. So we came up with 4 business ideas. I showed them this thing online. You spend $5, they could work on a logo. We created logos. We created a narrative around the 4 businesses. I had T-shirts and hats made, which I paid for. Again, failure. Right. They should be chopping wood or something to pay for that stuff. And then I had them go on the beach during the summer, and I had them go to different places and sell the T-shirts and hats. My wife is horrified, right? And you can't blame her, right? Because she's like, oh, it's embarrassing. My husband's got the kids selling T-shirts to our friends and hats and stuff. But I want them to get rejected. I want people to say, no, I'm not interested, right? And sure enough, many days they'd come home and my daughter, let's say, she sells most shirts and most hats. And it's like, all right, well, let's talk about why she crushed it and you didn't. So they learned some things there. But what really disappoints me, they don't, when I was that age, and I'm sure when you guys were that age, I had literally cut out a hole in one of the encyclopedias on my wall, my shelf, where I could hide money. So you'd open the encyclopedia, it was cut out, the money was in there, I knew exactly how much was there, I added to it whenever I made money. They lose their money, they sold their shirt, no regard for what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Right?
It's crazy, too, because you look at, in modern societies like this one, things like anxiety, depression, these type of paranoia, mental disorder type things, on the rise like crazy. And I think it's a combination.
We're looking for problems.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of, poor health, right? So physically they're just feeling more anxious and depressed. But I also think it's just, what it reminds me of? It's like when you look at all these celebrities that commit suicide, and I'm not making light of this, okay? I think it's a terrible thing. But the suicide rate among celebrities, it seems like it's higher than average, or at least it's higher than it should be considering these are celebrities. They have all the money, all the women, all the sex and drugs and whatever they want, and yet they're absolutely miserable. And I feel like today in modern societies, what's happened is we've gotten everything we think we've wanted, and then we realize this is not it.
I have a theory on it. I mean, happiness is obviously a big discussion because of people killing themselves, and it's not just celebrities. You got veterans. Oh, yeah. You got all kinds of things going on. And by the way, do we know with the numbers that the numbers are higher today than another time, or are they just more pronounced because now we can read about them on the internet?
Sure.
Right? But let's assume, which I think you're right, that the numbers are higher. I think happiness comes from actually taking things away. Mm-hmm. I don't think
every spiritual
delayed gratification, right?
And every spiritual practice says that. By the way, every spiritual practice says take away, and don't identify with things, and you'll find more of that peace or happiness.
My mother, we were probably 13 and 15. My sister and I were living in Ithaca now. I had my business back in Queens with my dad. I wake up one morning, and my mother has, and she had a practice. She was in India. She was fasting for 30 days. She was doing stuff that even people today aren't doing, right? At the level she was doing them, meditating straight for 30 days. She was crazy. And wake up one morning, she threw away everything, all material things in the house.
You just got rid of it.
Could you imagine that?
Including my stuff, my sister's stuff, her money, everything.
How pissed are you as a little teenage boy, man?
I was like, what the fuck, Mom? You can throw away your stuff, right? Because again, she's crazy and like she's lost her mind. The neighbor who I was friendly with was like, they're going through the garbage, they're finding money, they're taking everything, right? Like, but the lesson, just like I want to take the kids to India, the lesson was material things are not important. You cannot be attached to material things. And it took me 30 years to really understand it. But I think you want happiness, you got to take stuff away.
Do you think that speaks to, what's going on now, speaks to the recent explosion in popularity for obstacle course racing in events like yours, where people need to manufacture adversity and stress and pain because we feel like we need that to give us purpose?
Recreate this whole process.
Yeah, I think it's more. It's not just obstacle racing, right? I mean, you feel it in a marathon, you feel it in a long CrossFit workout,
sure.
Right? I just think we just need to be reconnected with ourselves, reconnected with like other people, eye to eye, right? Not on text, and reconnected with the earth. And when I say the earth, it's not just walking around barefoot in the dirt. There's something powerful about looking. I was cold the other night. I was in Vermont. We went up to Vermont, and the moon came up. It was a full moon, and I looked at them, and all of a sudden I wasn't cold anymore. It was like I was soaking in. And I don't mean to sound like a spiritual weirdo or anything, but like there's something to be said for just like absorbing the environment, which we don't do. So I think it feels really good. I think to your question, it feels really good to be outside sweating, breathing heavy, absorbing the environment, and that feels better than a cubicle on your phone after 2 hours of traffic and a shitty meal.
Yeah,
I would have to agree with that.
Yeah, we're not robots.
Yeah, talk about the growth of your organization right now. It seems like it's accelerating. Am I accurate in my observation?
We are, and I say this carefully because I recognize that it's very hard to maintain a trajectory that you're on in business. But we're the largest endurance participation sport in the world, right? 275 events, 41 countries, 1.1 million participants a year. And it's overwhelming. It's like, I'd rather be looking at the moon in Vermont. Like, it is fucking overwhelming. But if you're not growing, you're dying. Mm-hmm. And so I have no choice but to continue to grow and try to iterate and make sure we don't go the way of the dinosaur. Yeah.
What are your biggest challenges with that right now? Because I think sometimes when you look at a business and it starts off with, I guess pure would be the right word to describe it, pure, organic, and then it grows and it becomes something else. Do you have any fears of that?
I think a lot about everything we're talking about here. By the way, I don't get to live that way. Like, I'm on the computer, I'm doing the stuff that we're talking about not doing. But and I mean this. I'm not just selling you fluff when I say this. I'm doing an important job. We not me.
Sure.
We, the team, is doing an important. Funny enough, let's talk about the team for a second. The team is bumping up against 300 full-time people around the globe, right? 270, 300. And this year I said, you know what? Just a week ago, I said, we're never going beyond 300. I said, one, I bet you any organization could clip 20% of the people and you wouldn't even feel it.
True.
Two, I'm probably just emotionally attached to a bunch of projects and things that don't even move the needle. And that's why they get rid of CEOs. They bring in somebody new and they make smart decisions. Three is, we got 2,800 years of history with this number 300. like we should be the 300, right? That dude. But we're doing really good work. And so whatever, it's my job to to struggle and suffer every day a little bit so that hopefully we change some lives. The biggest challenge with the business is all the challenges any business has. So what we just spoke about, like how do look, if we didn't have budgets, you guys run a private company, and so you might have a different, I don't know if you have investors or not. If you don't have investors, you don't have the struggle I have, which is I got to make my numbers, I got to grow, I got this budgeting process, I got every quarter, I got to sit down with these investors and the board of directors, and that part sucks. It sucks because I would probably still run the business at slightly better than break even and have a much better life and be changing more lives and measure profitability and lives changed. But when you've got the pressure of we got to grow, I need better EBITDA, I need this, fuck.
Do you regret that sometimes, like having investors? I mean, is it possible where you're at financially to get out of that?
If we didn't have investors, we wouldn't be where we are today. Like if they didn't push me and make me uncomfortable the way I just described, we wouldn't be where we are today.
Sure.
Right? If I didn't have all that pressure that I don't like, look, if you came in the morning this morning, 6 a.m. and worked out alone, it'd probably be an enjoyable workout. Just like my 300 burpees this morning, although they sucked a lot less than if you were next to me doing them with me. Because you would have upped the game, I would have upped the game, and it would have been just terrible. Right? And that's what we're talking, like my investors and my board make me uncomfortable, which is exactly what we're talking about here. That's what I want to do to my kids, right? My kids would be like, if Dad wasn't here, life would be fucking great. But like, no, my job is to make them uncomfortable.
Right. When did you put together that, because you said something about, working more than just barely over breaking even, having a better life. When did you piece together that it wasn't money that gave you quality of life, it was all these other things?
By the way, it's easy to say that. So if you're listening out there, it's easy to say that when you have some money. So like, I wouldn't be able to say that if I didn't land on Wall Street and I didn't have that 12, 15-year run. There's very few industries where you could make that kind of money in that short period of time. Maybe Hollywood, if you're an actor and actress. Construction, you could, if you could really build a substantial, but there's very few industries where you could do it. And so I only realized it after I had money.
How much did you need? Because we went around. I asked you that earlier. We didn't get to it. Is how much money did you make during Wall Street, and did you need in order to give you that run rate of 15 years of being in the red? I
always had in my head the number changes, right? What's your number is a fun question, right? When I was young, it was, if I had $1 million, because that's just a number that everybody talks about. Then it quickly became, if I had $10 million, well, you need $50 million. And so the number moves. But I was very fortunate in that those lessons my mother gave me with throwing out the material things and talking about stuff that really matters, I was able to say, okay, if I burn, I'm making up numbers. I'm not going to give you actual numbers because it's a private thing, but I'll satisfy your thirst.
Okay.
If I was burning $250,000 a year in my life with having a family and children and a farm, I just did the math and said, I want to run out of money right when I'm dead. and what year am I going to live to? And the price of
Did you really work it backwards like that?
And I worked it backwards, and
cool.
and there was a lot of stress up until the time I was 40. I'm going to be 50 in a couple of weeks, in a month. Up until the time I was 40, there was a lot of stress, just like everybody listening has, which was, I got to save more. I need more. I got to make more. And then when I was 40, something happened where it was like, wait a minute. Actually, I don't need more. I just have to spend a little less. And if I live to 90, or if I live to, right, and so I started actually doing the math, and it really was a relief. Once I flipped that, it was like, I don't need the stress of investing in stocks or this. I don't need all that headache. I just have to make sure, drawing a chart that my life runs out at the same time my money runs out.
Yeah. Now, being a numbers guy, because this is something I think about a lot, like, are there certain things that, because we're talking about not needing money, not materialistic things, but at the same time too, there's something nice about being financially set and not having to stress about money, and then having certain things and the ability to do stuff. You talked about being a food snob. Like, I'm sure having money is nice because you could probably go to a 5-star restaurant and sneeze at a $200-$300 bill and not worry about it, where other people may not even get to experience that. What have you found are the things that like, hey, I appreciate that I've worked hard for this money and I enjoy these things and I'd like to keep this going?
Well, let me go back on the food snob thing. I don't like fancy restaurants. What I meant by that was I like an organic apple. If I had my choice, I go to Whole Foods. To me, Whole Foods just tastes better. I don't know why. Everything at Whole Foods tastes better to me. So having the ability to go to Whole Foods and grab breakfast at $40, all the work was worth it.
Okay.
I don't even think, I didn't look this morning and say, oh shit. Now, on the other hand, everybody says, what the fuck? I flew here to see you guys.
Yeah.
I fly from here to Singapore, from Singapore to Japan, Japan to Hong Kong to Beijing, and Beijing to Iceland all in a week. Okay.
Wait, 1 week?
Yeah. Call it 9 days.
Holy cow.
So, no first class. I sit in the back of the plane. So that to me is not important. Like going to Whole Foods and spending $40 on breakfast and getting what I want, like that, all the work was worth it. But I'm not going to blow money on a first class ticket because in my mind I say, well, I biked, across the United States on a tiny little seat. I could sit in a fucking airplane seat and watch movies. Right? Like I don't. So
what are the other things that you do? Because for example, I make this. I like nice things, and there's certain things that I like. That I'm willing to spend what other people might think a ridiculous amount of money on. For example, my bed or a TV that I like to watch because I love movies. Like there's certain things like that I will spend more even though I don't need to. Are there things like that in your life that you do appreciate that you can spend a little extra money on?
So I'll answer the question a roundabout way. We'll just have some fun. So the friends that I accumulated and were lucky enough to become friends with over the years on Wall Street are very wealthy individuals. Many of them earn $25 million plus per year, okay? So if you saw their houses in the Hamptons or in New York City, these are $40, $50, $60 million homes. I'm not interested in any of them. Like, I love my farm in Vermont. Our farm in Vermont, I paid $400,000 for. Now we renovated it and I spent some money on it, but not anywhere like affordable, very affordable. Mm-hmm. Even in places like the Hamptons, I would choose a much less expensive on the water, as opposed to being in the neighborhood next to whoever, right? So to your point, everybody's got their own thing, right? So if I could buy healthy organic food and not have to look at the bill. I'm not going to waste money at some ridiculous restaurant where they give, not interested. I'd rather get like fresh fish coming right out of the ocean in Japan, like that, like to be able to afford that. I like to be able to just go skiing with the kids and bed. Yeah, I'm not going to buy a $5,000 bed. If they've got some memory foam, I'm still going to try to find the deal. Yeah, you
renovated the house. So when you renovated the house, did you build a big kitchen? Did you build a big living room?
You got to see my wife wants to kill me. The kitchen's tiny. It's all like barn wood and like crooked tile. I like when I see movies. You guys, we all listeners out there watch a movie and then you immerse yourself as if you're in that scene, right? We all do that. The scenes that I'm most interested in living in are the ones where it's like a cabin on the side of the mountain and it's like dirty and there's a broom hanging like what was the Hateful Eight, mm-hmm. right? Like that. I want to live in places like that. So I'm not I'm never in my mind chasing some modern concrete home in LA at the top of the
right.
Could care less.
So we tend to partner up with people that are kind of the opposite. So is your wife into nice things? If you gave her free reign to do whatever, is there things?
She doesn't. I listen. I've never been married before. Hopefully, I'll never be married again. And she, I think, is awesome in the sense that like I hear a lot of horror stories with wives where they're shopping and buying boots and this thing and that thing. And no, the biggest challenge I have where she just with the kids will just go out and get a bunch of stuff and. Like new lacrosse gear or whatever. Like, no, just go get used stuff. Because I remember I didn't have access. When my father lost I didn't have access for, what's the helmet name? Riddell? R-I-D-D?
Yeah.
I couldn't afford one of those. So I wanted it bad, right? And so I saved money. I convinced my grandfather to give me money for ice cream, which I didn't buy, and I saved it, and I got that helmet. And then that helmet I cleaned. My kids are not going to clean that lacrosse equipment. It's like we just go to Dick's, spend $300, right? Like, so that's the only rub between my wife and I. And I think it's because she comes from a household where they were very focused on, she was a soccer player. She was a big time soccer player. And like, that's the focus, like going to soccer games. And I
feel like you dealt with so much adversity growing up and you worked so hard to be successful just so you could add more adversity to your life.
Yeah. But you know why? I mean, that's kind of like, let me turn it around. You worked out really hard in the gym so you could look good, so you could do more workouts.
Yeah.
Right? Like, because you learned...
You realize the value
of doing those workouts and how it made you look and how it made you feel. And so I realized the value of that work and the benefits it gives are not necessarily the money in the bank that allows you to go buy a really fancy mattress. It's all the... it's your ethos.
I feel like that's the mentality that... It's a very empowering mentality in the sense that you get a lot of challenge or adversity, and you look at it, and instead of saying, this sucks... poor me. Wow, look what I'm going to learn from this and grow, from this situation. Was that a hard thing for you? Or were there times in your life where you were depressed and you were like, you couldn't figure it out?
I was watching something on the plane out here last night, like a talk show or a movie where there was, I don't know who it was, somebody on Conan or something. He was talking about being depressed for a year. I've never been depressed, ever. So I'm really lucky, but I think the secret to it is it's hard work. Like, I just get ahead. Like, you guys got to help me distill this thought. We talked about it a little bit earlier, that cycle, right? That we talked about. Like, what I used to see in these homes, these 700 homes, was, here's a silly example. The wife or the husband is driving the car, and he hears squeaking on the brakes. Now, you should stop, go to a mechanic, and get the brakes fixed. But you don't want to deal with it right now. You put it off. And then the next day, the brakes don't work at all, and the husband can't get to work, and so he flips out and he starts fighting with the wife, and then the kids hear it, and it creates this whole shit show that could have been resolved if you just had the fucking brakes fixed yesterday when you heard the squeak, right? And so it's kind of like your body. As soon as you feel a little ache or a pain, you start stretching, start working on it so that it doesn't manifest itself and turn into something. And so I think the problem for most people is that they just don't understand you have to constantly be doing the work. Like, oh, Joe, just stop and smell the roses. Who the fuck is watering, maintaining, trimming the roses, fertilizing? Who's doing that? You can't just, if everybody's smelling the roses, there'd be no roses to smell. Right? Like, you got to do the work. And so I was running a marathon with somebody, and we're running, and I learned very early on, just like we talked, you put one foot in front of the other. That's how you get to the finish line. Oh, let's stop. My leg hurts, this hurts. Or just keep moving. Oh, I want to stop and get water. Okay, you get water while you're walking. And this went on for 5 hours, this discussion. Move. No, let's stop for a second. Move. Well, I got to stretch. Just keep moving. We get to the finish line. It's 4:59 on the clock. It's 100 yards away. At the pace we're going, it's going to be 5 hours and 30 seconds. And this person says to me, fuck, I wanted to beat I was like, you want to beat 5 hours? We've been having a fucking discussion for 5 fucking hours about just keep moving. Now you're not happy with the result, and everybody does that. And I don't know how to verbalize that well. But that, if I have one knack, I'm always working now on later. Is that?
So sacrifice today for tomorrow.
Yeah, we do the things that we have to do today, so we can do the things that we want to do tomorrow.
Yeah, and I think there's some freedom in that. Again, I don't want to do my burpees this morning, but if I didn't do my burpees this morning, my alternative was I was going to say to you guys, hey, do you mind if I do burpees while we do this interview? And that would have sucked. It would have sucked for you. It would have sucked for me. And then if we didn't do that, I got meetings later. I would have had to do my burpee. Like, you know what I mean? I knew that it would incur so much pain for me. Fuck it, just do it now.
Yeah.
What's the first thing that you put off when you need to put something off, when you need to reschedule something or not do it?
Very important question, and you got to help me verbalize this too. Is I think if I have any skill, I can prioritize. Prioritization is super important, right? Like what's more important is taking some phone calls and doing some emails this morning more important than burpees? Is taking cold shower, and I could quickly prioritize and so, well, my health is first and foremost. I got to get my burpees done. Right?
Because without your health, none of those other things matter.
It's like on the airplane, right? You take oxygen first, then you help the person next to you. So I'm able to prioritize very quickly in business and like what is important and what isn't at this particular moment right now. Now that drives people crazy because you might have a plan. You guys laid out your whole strategy for 2019, and then I would just be like, no, today we're doing this instead. Because I can quickly, like, you got to be malleable. You got to be able to move with the environment.
Do you drive your staff crazy with that attitude?
I drive everybody crazy. My people will come up, women and men will come up to my wife. We go to a race and they're like, oh my God, your husband's unbelievable. He motivates me. She's like, yeah, live with him for more than 3 days. You're really cool for 3 days, Joe.
You glazed over something that I actually want to ask you because I've never actually seen one in real life. Have you seen a gold bar, like the Italian job?
Yeah. So my neighbor, when he finally gets arrested, so I'm probably 27, 28 at the time, and he pays, I think the number was $14 million in gold bars in restitution. And I was the only one allowed in his house to like clean up and do stuff because I was working in the backyard. And I got to tell you, over the years, so I was 27, so for probably 12 or 13 years, I was in and out of that house, in the attic, in the basement, moving boxes, helping his wife. These fucking heavy boxes I'm moving around. Thinking back after those were gold bars. How would you hide $14 million of gold bars in your house? I mean, this is not like a California mansion. It's a 40-foot by 100-foot lot. It was a nice house, a brick house, but like, it's not a lot of places to hide $14 million in gold bars. And then I said to myself, how the hell did he get $14 million in gold in the house? And I got to tell you, for those 12, 13, 14 years, the pizza boxes and the cannolis and all those cars pulling up every day. Little by little.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow, that's a heavy pizza.
Yeah, that is heavy.
What's the biggest area of contention between you and your wife? Like, what do you guys fight the most about?
I think it's about, I have some non-negotiables, and it's literally, if you looked at my texts between her and I, she'll say something like, hey, it's a beautiful day, great day. I'll be like, math, Mandarin, green juice, workout. Hey, it's a great day, have a great day, have a safe flight. Math, Mandarin, green juice, workout, right? So I've got these non-negotiables for the kids that I ask her to push because you can't do it alone. It's a team effort, right? If your wife's not on the same page, the kids could figure out quickly how to get around it. And I don't think my wife is as excited as I am about the benefits of consistency, right? Like, you can't, in my opinion, you can't just do Mandarin. Oh, we'll just do it. Well, today's a birthday. We'll skip it today. No, it's every fucking day. It's 7 days a week. I know it sucks. I know I'm annoying, but it's every day. Because I know so many Chinese kids that wish they still spoke Mandarin. And when I talk to them about why they don't speak Mandarin, it's because their parents didn't push it on them. But yet when they were home, the parents were talking to them in Mandarin, but then the English language just kind of... So, honey, let's not be upset when the kids don't get into a good school. And it's the exact conversation I just had with the breaks. I know what's going to happen when they're 18 and applying for schools.
Right.
I know what's going to happen when they're going to live in the basement because they don't have a job. And I want to avoid that pain.
Yeah.
Right? By the way, if they did the math every day and they did the Mandarin every day and they had their green juice and they did the workout and they did all the things and they lived in it, all right, well, we did our best. But I don't want to have regrets and say, well, fuck, I guess there were just too many birthdays.
You're the hard ass then, and she's the one that kind of helps soften it. So you probably need a little bit about that.
Oh, no doubt. Listen,
if there was two of you,
Yeah.
it would
terrible.
It would be terrible.
Yeah, your kids would revolt when they get 18.
But yeah, no doubt about it. She is the shining light, and like I am rain and hail and snow and cold, and it's sunshine around her. So, but I think we agree here. You need some of that.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think maybe the kids may feel like it's rain and hail and snow and shit now, but down the road, I think they'll look back and go, "Man, I'm glad my dad made me."
I did what my mom was the hard ass.
Right.
I did what I know. Like, I already know that. Like, my wife and I go away, let's say for 30 days, and we come home. One comes in the front door, one comes in the back door. No one's coming up and hugging me. No one. They're not even looking at me. They are on her like a fly trap, right? But 30 years from now, they'll say, hey, he was right.
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts as far as like with football, you're seeing all this information coming out as far as CTE, and you get a lot of parents like taking their kids out of these opportunities to play a sport like that. And you're going to see this more and more often in terms of like what science studies come out in terms of like how this is affecting development of kids and, you know, potential problems with that. But for me, that was an essential part of my developmental process and how to deal with overcoming stress and adversity and all these types of things. And to eliminate that for me is I'm having a tough time with that, you know, with current research.
You want to have some fun right now?
Yes.
Can we dial somebody in on this call?
Oh, we might be able to.
If somebody could work on that, I would say we hold that question.
Okay.
And we dial my buddy. I could just put up my phone. I could dial. I don't even know where my phone is.
Well, tell us what why dial him in first.
So my buddy Jimmy Binns was the head of the World Boxing Association. He's 80 years old. You got to have him on the podcast.
Okay.
It just popped in my head because you asked that question.
Okay.
And for whatever reason, at a young age, I always found myself listening to older people. A lot of people don't do that. But my feeling was an older person, probably from the pool business, I picked it up. An older person already made mistakes. Yeah. Why do I want to make those same mistakes? Now, I still make a lot of mistakes, but for some reason, 70 and 80 plus year old people, I actually want to impart wisdom from. And Jimmy has our ethos. Jimmy is a Spartan at heart, right? He's used to do 1,000 sit-ups every day, ran marathons with work boots on, becomes a lawyer, not just in one state where most people take the bar in one state, but he goes out across the entire United States. That wasn't enough, learns Latin, and that wasn't enough, becomes a police officer. And he's had some, he represented Don King up against Mike Tyson, was the head of the WBA. He's larger than life. The Rocky statue in Philly, he put it there.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, he's... Actually, I got a funny story. You want me to tell you a funny story?
Yeah,
Jimmy?
Yeah,
of course.
So Jimmy says, hey, you want to go hang out with, what's his name in Rocky? Pauli. What's his real last name?
I don't know what his name. I know who you're talking about.
Bert something. Anyway, he says, come on, we'll have dinner with Bert. I forget his last name. And so I said, yeah, let's do it. So I stopped by my friend's house on the way, and I had just come from a Spartan Race. So we do a lot of cash sales at Spartan Race for merchandise and stuff. So I had a leather bag full of cash. That was our system in the old days of getting it to the bank, right? Like they would get me the leather bag. I got this cash. I'm on my way to go see Pauli from Rocky I'm going to have dinner with. I'm bringing my two buddies from Goldman Sachs. It's going to be fun for them. It'll be fun for all of us to have dinner with Pauli. So Jimmy carries a gun at all times, sometimes two guns, because of people he represented or people he put in jail, whatever. He just wants to protect himself, and he's extremely dapper. So he might have a purple Versace suit with purple socks, purple shoes. The whole thing is purple. The holster for his gun, the handle of his gun is purple. If that's the suit he's wearing, right? And a purple Jaguar for that day that he's wearing purple.
Wow.
And so just to set the scene. So I get to my buddy's house from Goldman Sachs, the two twin brothers, and we're going to go see Pauli. We're going to have dinner, and I got this bag of cash, and their friend that they met at NYU is over. And he's just a regular neighborhood kid, this kid. He just loves hanging out with the two brothers from Goldman Sachs. And he's friends with all of us. And he goes, what are you guys doing? I thought we're going to see, we should Google his last name.
Burt Young.
Burt Young. Yeah, Burt Young. So we're going to see Burt Young, Pauli from Rocky. And I said, you should come along. He said, what are you doing him? And I don't know why, it just came out of my mouth. I go, I owe him $50,000. I got to give him $50,000.
Because you had it on you.
I had it on me. It was just a joke, right? Like, no, we're just doing dinner with him, but that just spurted out of my mouth. So he's like, yeah, all right, I'll come along. So in the car on the way over, I said, listen, do me a favor, because this is the first drop I got going with him. Could you're going to have to, I'm going to put the money you check it in the coat with the coat check woman. And I'm going to need you to give him the money. All right, you'll understand later, but I need you to take care of it. So anyway, we go into the coat check. I check my bag. I get the little ticket, says number 52 on it, whatever. I give it to the kid, Brendan is his name, and I said, you're going to have to, about 10 minutes into the dinner, you're going to have to give him the bag. So Brendan, about 10 minutes in, says he's got to go to the bathroom. He's probably nervous. He doesn't know what the fuck is going on. Why is this happening? And when he goes to the bathroom, Jimmy pulls out 2 guns and puts them on the table. And now they're playing along. I tell him while he's in the bathroom what we're doing. And Brendan comes out of the bathroom and he sees Jimmy and he sees the guns and he sees Bert. And everybody's got a serious face at the table. We're all joking, obviously. And Bert leans over to him and says, "Hey, Brendan, the drop's light." And Brendan's a black kid, right? And he turns white. He's like, and there is complete silence for like 30 seconds, right? And then everybody starts breaking out laughing. So with that said, we got to call Jimmy.
Let's call him. Let's call this guy.
I don't know if he's going to answer, but we're going to give it a shot.
Well, it's good he's not getting any feedback. If you get feedback, you should put it down. Yeah, but if you can hold it if you want.
Joseph.
Jimmy, what are you doing?
I'm just driving up from Northfield, New Jersey. I just started to head back to Philly. I had to take my leather jacket down because I had to get a couple of
Before
pins.
you tell me too much, I have you on a podcast, and there's 1 million people listening to us. So don't say anything too crazy.
Thank God you told me that. How about shall I start praying in Latin? Adem qui laetificat juventutem meum. That's from my older boy days.
I was just telling them about you, and I said, you know what,
I can still say the suscipiat.
I said we got to call this guy. You're going to love this guy. So I was telling him you're a badass. One of the questions that came up was,
I'm far from a badass. I'm a law-abiding older gentleman who, when called upon, will stand his ground. Go ahead.
The question came up about kids and if I'm pushing the kids too hard and should kids be playing.
You know where I am on that.
I know. So we're going to talk about it a little bit. They were asking about football. Should you let kids play football? Should you let them box? And I said, we got to get Jimmy on the phone.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts?
Well, I did both, and it was the worst mistakes I've ever made in my life. So it hasn't caught up to me yet, but it will sooner or later. You know what I just saw the other day was a video. It wasn't a podcast, but it was on the internet about Lyle Alzado. He used to play for the Raiders, and died of a brain tumor, but he abused steroids. Can you still hear me?
No, we hear you well.
Okay.
We're listening.
Yeah, but I mean,
intensely.
I've seen so many fighters. I used to fight when I was 18. That's when I started to fight, and so I did it just for 2 years, and I may say I excelled at it, but I even then I knew, because just from looking around the gym, that if I stayed with it, it would have some very deleterious effects. So then I actually started to do some research into it, because I didn't know anything about the fact that there had been campaigns over in Europe for hundreds of years trying to ban boxing. And then, of course, I became the only lawyer in the world for the World Boxing Association. And I knew so many fighters, like on a first name basis, and I watched them all just deteriorate from genuine physical specimens and intellectual specimens as well to what Muhammad turned out to be. And then I did some more research, and the worst happened to Sugar Ray Robinson. And the reason being that these guys had great beards and they could take a lot of punishment. And my theory about boxers is that the boxers who achieve the highest pinnacle of the sport are the ones that are most intelligent, because it's that coordination between the brain and your hands and legs that elevates them above the ones that are not so gifted. But the problem is that it's a sport that eats up all the beauty, just eats it away, and they end up being unable to talk or walk or communicate, because that all those nerves that control your speech and your gait, they all come right over the temporomandibular joint, and each time it gets displaced, there's damage. And each time you're punched in the gym, forget fights, we're talking about sparring, each one of those, a straight left-hand jab, every time it hits, causes a concussion.
I even heard now. I even heard in the military the explosives that we're using in training are as powerful as a hit in the NFL or a hit in the ring.
Yeah. Well, you see it. I mean, you flinch yourself when it happens. You flinch when you hear a gunshot. You flinch. So
you don't know anything about gunshots, though.
About which gunshots?
Gunshots.
Yes, I do. But in any event, that's for another day. But but what I'm saying to you is, anybody who would allow I used to see people put their sons in the ring against one another at ages 5 and 6, and I thought, how stupid could you be? I left out an adjective, but I just can't believe people would subject a little tiny brain to that type of punishment, because once those brain cells go, they don't regenerate. They never come back. Never come back.
Jimmy, when you come out to California, where do you go? Because these guys, where am I right now?
San Jose.
I'm in San Jose. Are you anywhere near San Jose when you come out here?
No, my grandchildren live in Redondo Beach.
Got it.
Southern California.
Got it. For me, California is just one place.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
But they can listen. They can Google me. Google Jimmy Bins.
We have Jimmy.
Oh, you have? Okay,
why
good.
we have you on here before you go? One question.
No. Listen, I got to drive for an hour and 10 minutes. I can bullshit all day long.
Okay, then I got a question for you. I know that you've.
And listen, that guy that you're sitting with, I used to charge him big money for bullshitting.
That's right. That's right.
And he's kind of a cheap ass, so I can't believe it.
I'm poor again.
Can we talk about, before you ask that question, could we talk about the air conditioner scene when you disconnected?
Well, but that was an injustice that was righted. And so what happened was that I after living in my seashore house for about 9 years, I started to wake up every morning about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and I didn't know why, And so one day I walked out in the garage and I see this wrench or a pair of pliers or something vibrating. It was housed in a piece of wooden cabinet. So I go over there and I see this thing is shaking, and I discover, it's because right outside this wall are these air conditioning. I forget what they're called, but the things with the fans in them. And so happened to be an air conditioning guy working a couple of doors down. I said, "Take a look at them, please." And he said, "Well, a couple of them are out of round and they're making some noise." He said, "But they're not yours." I said, "What do you mean they're not mine?" So they belong to the house next to you, the interior house. There were 3 houses. I was on one end. So they belong to that house over there. So I didn't think anything about easements or any of that stuff, but I talked to the guy who owned it. And I said, "Hey, Al, you got to do something about it." Well, he said, "That's Bobby's area." I said, "Well, I don't care whose area it is. You got to do something about it because it's waking me up at night. I'm not happy." So anyway, some time went by and nothing happened. So then I pulled out my documents, and I see where the guy who built the houses just on his own put them there and ran all the lines through my house. So I checked to see if there were any easements. There weren't. I got a local lawyer down there. He says, "Nah, tell the guy to move them." So he didn't move them. And then
you're being a lot more PC when you were calling me.
You told me I couldn't talk regular.
Oh no, you could talk regular.
This is a rated R podcast.
Yeah, this is a rated R.
No. So I said, "You got to get them fucking things out of there." And so he didn't do that. So I went to a local HVAC guy. I said, "Come over here. I want you to look at this." And he said, "Oh, Mr. Bins," he said, "I don't want to get involved in this. This is not going to end happily." I said, "No problem." So I called, who I called, Joe? Oh. Anthony.
Oh, you called Anthony.
I said, "Anthony, whoever your HVAC guys, I'm calling." So the guy called me up. I said, "Look, go down. There's the 2 ones on the end. Just unhook them, but do it professionally, cap off everything and then put them in the back of the garage next to me," which he did. So this guy calls me. He says, "Well," he says, "you did something illegal. We're going to get you and this and that and that." So then some cop calls me. And he says, "I want to talk to you." I said, "What about?" And he said, "Well, I'm investigating." He said, "What are you investigating?" I said, "There's no crime to investigate. I'll decide that." I said, "Well, then you don't want to talk to me. Talk to my lawyer. Here's his number." Boom. So I gave my real estate lawyer's name. So then I went down there just to make sure they didn't try to put him back on. And damn sure if there wasn't 2 men and this lady, this next door right outside my house, So I go down and I said to the two guys, I said, look, I said, I don't know who you gentlemen are. I said, I'm going to guess you're HVAC people. I said, you were just standing on my lawn and you didn't ask me if you could. And I said, I'm not even going to look at this lady screaming over here because I don't care what she says. But don't go back on my lawn unless you ask me, or then I will have a problem with you. You got that? Yes, sir. Well, I said, okay, that's the end of the conversation. So then all of a sudden 3 cops show up and they arrested me. So anyway, cutting right to the quick, they ended up, they went up, fingerprinted me, blah, blah, blah. And then they ended up paying me $105,000, and the neighbor paid me $12,500 and moved. That's the end of the story.
No, but that's not the end of the story. Then you became a cop.
Oh, yeah. Well, then after that, I did go to the police academy. I enrolled in the police academy when I was 73 years of age, and I graduated first in my class when I was 74 years of age.
In fitness and everything. First in his class.
Everything. But now I teach cops how to ride Harleys, and we ride Harley Davidson Road King motorcycles. And I am now the deputy chief of my department, and I am a nationally certified Harley Davidson motorcycle instructor.
Let me tell you. You gave me an idea for a story I want to tell them. Can I tell them the story of the garage?
Which one?
The one that you had Anthony build?
You can tell them, sure. I don't give a shit.
So just feel free to interject. So this kid Anthony is a friend of both of Jimmy and I, and he's a contractor. So Jimmy says, hey, Anthony, I want a garage in the back. I need a place to put my Jaguars that's nice and clean, and it's all the weeds back there, and I don't really like the way it looks because Jimmy's got OCD and everything's got to be clean and neat. And he just didn't like the way the land next to his house.
Well, I mean, they had to do a lot of work back there because it's a pretty big garage.
Yeah, so he says, I want this garage built. Now, this is Anthony telling me the story. Now, Jimmy's going to have his perspective. So Anthony says,
I don't know. Anthony knows, so I wasn't there. Anthony knows it.
Yeah, no. Anthony's telling me the story. I want you to interject if I get anything wrong from your perspective. Okay. But Anthony says, Jimmy calls me, wants me to build this garage. I go back, it's all weeds. I lay it out. I take the surveys, and I say, hey, Jimmy, Mr. Binns, I think he calls him Mr. Binns, that's not your land. It looks like that's somebody. Jimmy says, I don't give a fuck. I can't have weeds and everything in the backyard. I need a garage there. He says, I understand, Mr. Binns, but that's not all your land.
No, it wasn't exactly that. It was something to do with the telephone company or the electric company had wires running back there.
It's not his land.
And they thought they had an easement.
It's not his land.
So we shut that off.
So Anthony builds the garage, and now he's got the second story going up with the roof. But he can't get the roof in because the wires from the fucking electric company and the telephone companies are running through the land, which is not Jimmy's where he built the house. So Jimmy now, it's been like 2 months, and Jimmy's losing his mind. I got nowhere to put my fucking cars. There's weeds back there. It's muddy. I need this thing done. Mr. Binns, I understand. I'm trying to get the electric company and the telephone company here to move the wires, and I built the garage. It's not on your land. Jimmy summons him to his house, according to Anthony, one morning. Jimmy's in his whitey tighties, 5 a.m. Says, Anthony, I want the fucking garage done today. So Anthony calls his guys and he says, get a ladder and some bolt cutters and meet me at Mr. Binns' garage, 6 a.m. So Anthony gets there, according to Anthony, climbs up on the ladder, takes the bolt cutters, closes his eyes because he doesn't know what's going to happen, and starts clipping the fucking electric wires and the fucking phone wires. Right? And he said sparks are shooting out of his teeth. Right? He's fucking clipping these wires. And he leaves his foreman there, and he says, all right, quickly get the roof on. And if there's a problem, call me. And he goes to another job. He says about 3 hours later, he gets a call. I think you should come down here. He said he gets there and it looks like a commercial for like Verizon, the electric company. Apparently half of South Philly is shut down. Gas stations, hospitals, nobody's getting power or phone because he just shut. Now, I don't know. That's Anthony's side of the story. And apparently they're arresting Anthony. They're putting him in the car. He's handcuffed and he's trying to get to his phone. And the cop says, what are you doing? He says, I'm trying to call Mr. Binns. This is Mr. Binns' garage? Yeah. Oh, uncuff him. We didn't know. And that was that. So I adjust the story accordingly, Jimmy, but that's what I heard.
No, parts of it could be apocryphal, but in substance, that's the story.
Yeah.
But then nothing happened to Anthony or to me, for that matter.
Yeah, so he gets to do whatever he wants in Philly. So if you guys decide to do a podcast.
It's not exactly that way, but
but kind of.
So Jimmy, I gotta ask you. You've probably
Yes, sir.
defended and been around a lot of prolific people. What is and I know according to Joe that you carry one, sometimes two guns on you. What is probably one of at the moment?
Well, at the moment in my shoulder holster sits a 5-shot Chief Special with 38 hollow point bullets, and on my hip sits a Glock 19 with 15 in the magazine and 1 in the chamber. Now, 9mm.
Now, a better question: Does it match your suit though?
Well, if I was dressed, but see, I'm dressed in motorcycle clothes now because I was going to ride until I found out how fucking cold it is. I ain't going to go out now.
So I want to ask you. Obviously, if you carry guns like that, there's definitely a reason.
I also have an AR-15 in my trunk that has a nice scope on it.
In case shit gets really crazy, right? Yeah.
Well, you never know. Shit happens.
So what has been one of the scariest moments in your life that's led you to make sure that you always are carrying something?
No, I don't have scary moments in my life. I just want to be prepared. You never know. Yeah, I see stuff that happens to other people on television, and I hear things, and I know about crimes that take place. Nothing has ever happened to me. But I don't want it to either. So I have taken measures to make sure that it doesn't.
Okay.
I was telling them about Bert from Rocky, Pauli, Rocky's brother.
Yeah.
When we went to dinner and we were...
brother-in-law. You mean Burt Young?
Burt Young, yeah. I was telling him about Burt Young, and when we played the joke, you put your gun on the table. But Jimmy,
I forgot that.
Jimmy, I remember when I first saw his apartment down in Miami, he had a wall of suits, purple, yellow, green, orange. Every suit had matching shoes, socks, holster, gun. It was all lined up perfectly.
That's all true. That's true.
And he won't start his car until he's cleaned the whole dashboard, the steering wheel. Everything's got to be clean and perfect. They're looking at pictures of you.
I don't get sick. I don't get sick.
That's it right there.
What do we got to do to convince Jimmy to come down to the studio? What do we got to convince to get you over here?
Where are you?
We're in
San Jose.
San Jose, California.
Nah, there's no chance. I don't fly anymore. Listen, I used to spend half of my life on an airplane between Vegas and Philly and Atlantic City and Europe and England and Ireland and all the places because I flew virtually every weekend to a fight somewhere in the world, and now I'm tired. I can't take that bullshit going through the airport with these people touching me and wanting me to remove my shoes. I don't do any of that shit. So
tell them about Tyson when you were up against Tyson.
Well, I mean, Tyson's a friend of mine. So, but he asked me to represent him in suing Don King, but I was already representing Don King, so I told him I couldn't do it. And the story's too long. But anyway, Tyson's a great guy, and now he's landed on his feet. He has a 9-year-old daughter who can rally tennis balls with highly rated men professionals. Her name is Milan.
Oh wow.
And then she can go home and take her her tennis racket, put a tennis racket away and sit down and play classical piano. No, wow. It's true.
Did not know that.
Excellent. Well, how about next time you're in Redondo Beach visiting your family, we fly down to you and interview you there.
Yeah, but I even told my daughter-in-law I'm not coming back out there anymore because that 3 hours has always fucked me up so bad. I could fly to Europe easier. I don't know what it is about my body clock, but whenever I go out there, I would be like in a trance for the whole weekend or however long I was there. I would never leave my
I'll get these guys.
Hotel.
I'll get these guys to come to Vermont, and we'll figure out a way to get them on the East Coast.
I ain't going to Vermont anymore either. This motherfucker took me up to Vermont, and I froze my ass off. Even my grandson, who at the time was only like 9, he said, "Pop, we got to get out of here." And I said, "You're right, let's go." And we left.
Jim,
he said, I built a special house just for you. And like a jerk off, I believed them. So I go there. There's no fucking heat, no hot water, no nothing.
I thought you were tough.
Was for Pocahontas to come in and tell me she wanted to give me a blowjob.
Oh shit!
Hey Jimmy, you've known Joe for a long time. Do you have a Joe story for us? Since we're interviewing Joe and talking to him, do you have a Joe story?
No. Let me explain something to him about him to you. He's fucked up. I became friends with him via some girl that I used to go out with, and then I became very friendly with all of his relatives, his father, his stepmother, his aunt, and so one time he was driving home. Well, he wasn't driving; somebody else was driving to work for him, and the car went off the road, and they hit a tree head on. Joe. His hip came completely out of the socket. They took him to some little hospital somewhere, and his intern stood up, pulled on his leg, and popped the socket, the ball back into the socket. So this was during the time when he was making gobs of money up on Wall Street. So without going to a hospital or a physician or anything, he on crutches would walk from his apartment down to Wall Street every day. And then, so we sued the driver. It's kind of like a friendly suit, but we somebody else owned the car, so we had a sustainable cause of action. And when it came time to try the case, that dumb motherfucker had run something like 46 marathons, 30 Ironman races, and this and that. And I'm up there trying to get a verdict. You know what I mean? And the bottom line was there was no doctor to testify. There was no nothing. And on bullshit alone, I got him a $500,000 jury verdict.
Oh shit!
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
We even had the prostitute, his new bride, to come in and say how much it affected their honeymoon and blah, 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 blah. And she's Catholic, so she probably has been to confession already, and that sin's wiped away.
The truth of the matter is my leg got ripped out of my hip. I went through the window at 85 miles an hour, woke up on the side of the road. But I did recover very quickly.
No, but listen, you're in the presence of the strangest man in the history of the universe. He's right there, but he's got to stop with his children, and he's got to stop making them move like carpetbaggers to one end of the world to the other, to here to there. Got to live like a normal person, buy a nice little semi-detached house or something like that. Forget about the money. He can't spend the money that he owns, that he already has made. So what's the difference? You know what I mean?
I know, Jimmy. I'm trying to convince this guy to buy himself a nice fucking bed. He won't even spend a couple bucks on that. The guy's so cheap.
Oh, no. Listen to me. He sleeps on floors and shit like that. He's insane. I'm just telling you right now. He's certifiably insane.
I'm here, by the way.
But he's a great fucking guy.
Yeah,
we think so.
For sure. We love him. That's why he's here, man. We love him too.
Yeah.
I just
tell him when I used to take you down to the Trinity Gym, teach you how to box.
That's true. He used to bring me down to the gym. But I just wanted them to know that I got backup if they bother me too much or give me a hard time.
Well, you never tell anybody that, Joe. You just say, I don't think you should have said that
to me. Excellent.
Jim, we'll catch you later. Thanks for doing this.
Be safe, guys.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Joe. See you, buddy.
Wow, what a character.
I told you, he's awesome.
I want to get him on the show. So
even if
you got to get him on the show.
We'll fly to him. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, if you guys do a trip to East Coast, we'll coordinate. I'll get you like 5 or 6 people like that.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Old timers. Actually, I got 3. I got like 3 old wise men that are. Jimmy's one of them. Marty Fox is the other one, and Marty will tell you some crazy stories about Wall Street finance, class action lawsuits.
Yeah, I love that.
And then you got Al Capucci. So I got three old timers for you.
I love
great name.
I love talking to older people. There's just so many stories, and the wisdom alone is just fantastic.
Yeah,
absolutely.
How often do you keep up with someone like him? Do you guys talk pretty regularly?
Jimmy and I talk a lot. Like he'll just call me. There's very few people in my life. You guys probably have the same thing where anytime. Doesn't matter, 3 a.m, whatever, the phone rings and you answer. Like he would answer anytime I call him. I told you, like he just picked up.
Yeah,
and I'm the same way with him and a couple other friends. And they're AAA personalities, so they're always awake, right? And so people that answer your call at any time, you're just going to call, right? You just call them more.
Yeah.
Now, was there a time, because I feel like with people like that, there's something that happened, like where you knew like this guy's going to be lifelong for me. Was there a moment in your guys' relationship where you're like, okay, this is like family for me now?
Well, don't forget, my mother died at a young age. My father died. I don't really have anything left in the neighborhood. My grandparents, everybody's gone. So these 3 old wise men are like my guys, right? My neighbor who was my guy went to jail. Like, there's not, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they just became...
So they're like mentors to you?
Yeah, a woman I interviewed once on a podcast said to me, everybody's got to have a personal board of directors. Before I ever heard that, these are like my personal board of directors. And one of them I owe everything to because he got me out of the neighborhood. Like my father, I guess, whispered to him. I didn't know this before my father died. Whispered to one of them and said, I tried to get him out of the neighborhood for a long time. You did it. So I want to thank you for that. Like I was enamored, just like you guys would have been enamored with the neighborhood and the money and the gold bars and the cannolis, right, and all that stuff. And so I didn't want to leave that. But this guy convinced me to go to Wall Street, and that changed everything.
Do you think there's a thin line between the people that succeed and do it the right way and the people that succeed and maybe do it on the other side of the law? Do you think that there's a lot in common with them and maybe it's just a little bit in the decision making?
I got a guy to call. You want to call a guy on that one? We're going to call a guy. Hang on. Hang on. Do it.
Sounds is gonna go.
Yeah, we got a guy for everything.
Yeah,
right
we got a guy.
Now, this guy might not answer because we're going to call his wife. Hang on. He's really cheap. I say that lovingly. And he's been retired for 40 years. And he's a big believer in just like he'll turn the heat down in the house. Like he makes me look like a big spender. and so he disconnected his phone. And it's just hard to get him. But hang on, let me.
Because he didn't want to pay the phone bill.
He doesn't want to pay the phone. Like he looks at every like penny. But you got to hand it to him. He's been retired for 40-something years.
Hi, Joe.
How you doing? It's I got you on. Don't say anything dirty because I have you on like a podcast right now. Is Al there? I want to ask him a question.
I'm sick in bed.
Oh, sorry about that.
No, and he's down the cellar, and I don't think he has his phone.
All right, then forget it. I'll call him.
I'll call down to him and see if he'll go get his phone.
All right.
And then you want him to call you, or?
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah. Have him call my cell. That'd be perfect.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, sometimes I think that, like, I think if I grew up differently, maybe if I had a bad upbringing or I wasn't brought up with good morals, if I would have gone in the quote unquote wrong direction, I think I'd still be working and hustling and do all that stuff, but it probably would be
adapt to your environment
in that
somehow.
direction. Yeah.
I think that's true of anybody that's a hustler. If we didn't get guided the right way, we would be doing it. The hustle wouldn't be gone away. It's just you do it the wrong way. And I might have to go soon. Hang on a second.
Yeah, no problem.
Well, imagine being somebody who's been in the black market of cannabis for 30, 40 years.
And now it's a legal market.
And now it's a complete legal market. It's like, man, you could have established yourself as one of the best in that space, in that field, and everybody looked down upon you as this evil, bad person. And then here we are, fast forward 10, 20, or 30 years.
You saw the same thing with Prohibition, alcohol.
Al Capone, and now you got Budweiser, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, same thing, same hustle,
He
right?
could have been. Actually, wasn't... what's that whiskey they wrote? Jack Daniels. Weren't they?
They were bootleg before.
They were bootleg.
Oh, I bet most. I think about that all the time. Like when I think about my first business, it was by hook and by crook. And I'm sure you guys in the very beginning to get going, unless you're funded like in Silicon Valley, you're doing whatever you have to do to get it going. Right. Joe Kennedy, the head of the SEC, was like a...
Sometimes I believe when I look at some of these massive companies and I see what it takes to get to that level, and now experiencing that myself, I go,
"Oh, those guys are pit bulls."
Yeah, and how much of that was funded on money that we don't know about, or how did those guys get to that point to have that kind of capital to make those types of moves? And
movies emulate life, and so if you look at like The Godfather, right, where he eventually tries to get into a clean bit, I think that happens more often than not. I think being around businesses long, it's pretty rare. It happens. Like my best friend in life is clean as a whistle. It made insane amounts of money, just did it the right way. But it's rare.
Mm-hmm. It is, right?
It's rare to be at that level and not have. I mean, I think about the Big Dig in Boston, for example. I don't know if you guys know that tunnel that was being done 10, 15 years ago. I think they went $18 billion over budget.
Yeah.
Hold on, this is my buddy. Al.
Yeah, Joe, what's up?
I got you on a national podcast, so don't say anything too bad. I got a question. I got a question for you. I was telling him about my super mentors. What were we asking? Oh, we were asking Al. They wanted to know, like, if you're going to go the right way or you're going to go the wrong way. Explain the question again.
Yeah, so the question is, people who are very successful and do it the law-abiding way, and then people who are successful but kind of break the rules or maybe in the black market, that there's a very thin line that separates them.
What are your thoughts on that, Al?
I don't know how thin that line is. My feeling is that, my first job after graduate school at Cornell was with the Securities and Exchange Commission. And
the SEC,
it's pretty clear. The law is pretty clear, okay? And we had a guy there who was a pretty well-known person, and he did something which was illegal, pure and simple. So I took it to the commission, and they came back to me and said, well, really nobody got hurt. And I said, look, the law is pretty clear here. If you're an officer, director, or 10% stockholder, you're subject to insider trading. And this guy broke it. So my feeling is it's not a thin line. If you know the rules, they're pretty damn clear.
You had said to me, Al, when I was in Queens and you were trying to get me to Wall Street, you had said, listen, Joe, you just go on the other side of the river. You get to Wall Street, they're doing the same things all those guys in the neighborhood are doing, only they're doing it legally.
Right. They know where the law is, okay, and they stay on the right side of it. But in terms of the morality of what they're doing, that's another question.
Right, and I think that's what you're saying, Sal, right?
Yeah. Because there's still I think there's still a sense of morality. It's just not legal.
Well, look, even today, there's some question about whether insider trading is illegal. Okay, now the weight of the evidence is pretty damn clear. The rules of the Securities and Exchange Commission are this: the reason that people have confidence in the markets is that we have clear rules. So if some people are in the stock market and are operating on inside information, that makes it not fair. In a society like ours, if people view the rules as unfair, you break down the regular rules of society.
Right.
So what I was telling Joe is the guys in Queens were just stupid. Because if they just learned where the rules were and stayed on the right side of them, they'd be okay. And the rules are pretty clear. But I would disagree with the assumption that it's a thin line. You can say that if you want to. But, I mean, if you go to a stop sign, I'm in a red light, and the light is red, you stop. If you're going through it because it's still yellow, come on, you broke the law. So I don't think it's. I'm sorry. I disagree with saying it's a thin line.
I just so you guys know, Al's a stickler.
I see that.
Al's a stickler. He's very, very detail oriented and clear. I wanted to take the opportunity. I was with these guys, Al. They have about 1 million people listening to you right now. So sorry to put you on the spot.
That's okay.
And I wanted to dial you in. I was telling them about my mentors, and obviously you're one of them. So,
right.
What do you? By the way, this is one of the wealthiest guys you'll meet. He's down in the basement. It's a concrete floor, unfinished basement in the dark, no heat, and he's on his computer. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing?
No. It's in the basement, but it's heated.
Al, before we let you go, I know we're bothering you right now. Do you have a story on Joe? I mean, obviously you talk to this guy still. There's something about him that you've been attracted to for this long. Do you have a story about Joe?
Well, I guess the thing I'm most proud of is this. Joe is a situation where Joe and I were both right in the argument, but he took my side of it. And here it is. when Joe was going to Cornell, he was busy with his school business, okay, and he was successful at it. And so he said to me, I don't think I need this. And I said, well, I think you should continue, because he wanted to leave Cornell after 2 years. And I said, look, Joe, I think you don't realize that you have a certain cachet. You're going to be out in society. And if you have a Cornell degree, that gives you a certain credibility. So I was right in the sense that he should continue, but he was right in the sense that he didn't need the degree. Okay, he's a natural entrepreneur, works his tail off. He'll be successful with or without the Cornell degree. The Cornell degree gave him certain cachet, and I think he realizes that. But it's a case where he didn't have to he didn't have to continue at Cornell to be successful. But that's that story I can tell you.
Changed my life, finishing school. For anybody out there listening, I recently had this discussion with my sister-in-law, who said there's lots of people that are successful without going to college, but for me, it changed my life. But I needed the credibility because of where I was from. I needed that. I didn't grow up in Silicon Valley, and all right, Al.
Well,
what else?
Yeah.
What were you gonna say?
Good luck. Good luck. So where are you?
I don't know. Somewhere out here.
San Jose, California.
What part of California?
San Jose.
Oh, San Jose. Okay, good.
Yep.
All right,
partner. I'll see you.
Good talking to you.
See you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, that's excellent that you got these friends like that.
Oh, it's amazing. Everybody. By the way, I don't think there's a successful or older person that wouldn't help anybody that's listening to this. You just have to ask, and then you have to do what they tell you to do, because otherwise, anybody could ask me for a favor, whatever, and I'll do it. But if they don't listen,
you're not gonna do it again.
That's one of my biggest pet peeves. Like I'll give the shirt off my back. I'll give all the time I have in a day to somebody that's willing to ask the questions and then actually go put the work in. And I have a lot of respect for people that do it. You know what? What it is, it takes humility to do that. And a lot of people.
It's hard. It's hard to ask. Back to the original question, then I got to run. My wife. So I had this theory. Again, I saw these 700 houses, right, when I was cleaning the pools, and I saw a lot of divorces, and including my own family. And I thought, how could I set up my situation to make it less likely there would be a breakup in the family, that I could keep a solid family? And I thought, and I thought a lot of KPIs in this, right? Can't do that, can't do this, right? Definitely don't have a girlfriend. That doesn't help the relationship. But one was, I want to marry a younger woman. If I'm lucky enough to find a younger, beautiful woman that then would marry me, right? Like, I think that would help me, because I think a lot of guys, and I'm sorry if people listening are saying I'm a jerk, they start to stray later when right? Like, and so if I could set myself up, because I figured by the time I'm 50, I'm on my way downhill at that point. I'm gonna do my burpees. I'm gonna do the best I can, but I'm on my way down. And if my wife is still hot at that point, like, it's gonna be more likely that I'm focused on. And so,
what's the buffer?
Genius.
I think it's like, well, for me, it's 9 years. So 9-10 years for me. And number one, and number two, I should get married later. Like, those were two important things for me. 3 was make money before I get married, because the stress of making money and that pressure on the family, I thought would start to crack some of the foundation. And so there's probably 10 things, but those were 3 that I focused on. And
Joe's marriage advice. How long have you been married?
I'm married now about 18. Yeah, my wife will be pissed because I probably got it wrong, but about 18 years, 17, 18 years, something
Good
like
deal.
that.
Before you go, was there any advice you could give our listeners for success, business success?
Yeah, so I got this. This is going to be, you guys, if you do a book, okay, you don't need anything but this page for business. Just one. It could be a 1-page book. It'd be really cheap to print. And I got this from Theo Epstein's, a friend of my wife and I's. He took the Red Sox to the championship, and then he took the Cubs. Youngest general manager ever. Took him at 80 plus year slumps. Theo, how did you do that? Like, you didn't just do it once, you did it twice. He said 3 things. 1, set your vision and mission. Everybody knows that. We've all heard it. But make sure everybody buys into that vision and mission. Don't just stick it on the wall. Like, take people out, climbing mountains. Make sure everybody buys into vision and mission. Only hire people that really get the vision and mission and buy into it. 2, make sure the people you hire are resilient. Like, it's cool to have domain expertise and make sure they know how to use the computers in this room and the audio equipment, all that stuff. But if they're not resilient, they're not going to work, because business requires resilience and the ability to bounce back. So all his scouts, everybody that does recruiting for his teams, they've got to show examples of resilience in their life and baseball, etc. And then the most important one was no one is allowed to take success for themselves. In other words, if the pitcher had a great night, the pitcher cannot say that it was him. He's got to say thanks for the catcher, thanks for the midfielder, and when something fails, you've got to own the failure. Mm-hmm. Don't own the success, but own the failure. And he said once everybody on the team, including the management, are doing that, he goes, you got a team. Mm-hmm. And so it's hard to do. I'm trying to do it like we talked about earlier. How do I become a better CEO? And it's how do I get the whole team? Because it's a human trait to sit around in a room with a couple of senior people and complain about something. Like, no, we own it. We got to own it. Mm-hmm. And so I'm working on that. But I'm going to leave you guys with, we're in search. My team's going to kill me for this. For a new CEO for Spartan. And
oh my God. We're still going with this, yes.
Yeah, you guys got to figure it out. So have people send in resumes or whatever. And
we'll filter them for you.
You filter them for me.
I feel like we have a really good relationship.
Put them in the hot seat.
Yeah.
You and I are sexting on a regular basis, so I feel like
we can even have my three wise men.
Right. We'll do a little call in too.
Yeah, it could be fun.
Yeah.
So work on that. Why don't we say by the end of 2019 we'll have somebody?
All right.
Could we do that?
That's a good goal.
We'll put it all out, a world global search.
Yeah.
All right.
They've got to be. They probably can't be married, only because it could be male or female. By the way, I'm gender neutral. They got to be able to fly a lot, and I don't want to put that pressure on somebody that's got a young family.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they got to be able to jump around. They've got to have great. You know what we need,
right?
Just get me one.
We got you.
Absolutely.
No problem, man.
We got you, Joe.
You guys do recruiting here, right? I see.
It's international business.
It's always an adventure with you.
Yeah.
Every time.
All right, cool.
I always enjoy Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
All right, brother.
Thank you for listening to Mind Pump. If your goal is to build and shape your body, dramatically improve your health and energy, and maximize your overall performance, check out our discounted RGB Super Bundle at mindpumpmedia.com. The RGB Super Bundle includes MAPS Anabolic, MAPS Performance, and MAPS Aesthetic. 9 months of phased expert exercise programming designed by Sal, Adam, and Justin to systematically transform the way your body looks, feels, and performs. With detailed workout blueprints and over 200 videos, the RGB Super Bundle is like having Sal, Adam, and Justin as your own personal trainers, but at a fraction of the price. The RGB Super Bundle has a full 30-day money-back guarantee, and you can get it now plus other valuable free resources at mindpumpmedia.com. If you enjoy this show, please share the love by leaving us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes and by introducing Mind Pump to your friends and family. We thank you for your support, and until next time, this is Mind Pump.